the idea was that I would run a household, I would cook and clean, and I learned how to sew. As a kid, I was being trained to do that. So my education was shaped around how to be a good wife and mother. Anything else wasn't important. So college wasn't an option. That would have just been too dangerous and a waste of time. Getting a career would have just taught me how to be an individual and think for myself. And so that was not a safe place for me to be. Going on dates would have been practice for divorce. So the courtship model was presented as the way to get married and stay married. So all of these ideas, it felt like my whole future was mapped out. And I didn't really have to think about anything. I just had to follow the rules, and then I would follow this path to getting married. But it turns out, being a human being and not a robot, that it didn't go over very well, because I developed a lot of anxiety and depression from a young age, just feeling so repressed. And it's hard to explain to people, because often people will say, oh, you were 18, you could just move out. But I didn't understand that I had legal rights as an adult. Nobody taught me that. And I was told, you're a child until you get married.
Things that you don't ever get over are the death of a child and suicide. Thank goodness can't attest to the death of a child part, but suicide just stays with you. My brother was incredibly high functioning, so there was actually no indication that he was going to take his life the next day. When my husband got the call and told me that my brother was dead, well, first of all, I denied it and said he was probably hurt. We should get to Denver and see him. The biggest thing is the confusion of why someone would take their own life. What I have, found since then is that people do it all the time, and they hide their depression because depression is not particularly, or mental health is not particularly popular in discussion because of the possibility that they'll be somehow stigmatized. And I've had this said to me, so this is not just a thought-provoking comment. This is something somebody said to me. Wow, I get depressed, but I'd never kill myself. Wow. Depression and anxiety are medical conditions. Would you not treat your child for cancer? You find that your child had cancer and you would be embarrassed and not tell anyone and not treat them? And you would let them die from cancer? And why would you do that to your friend, to your family, to your child if they have clinical depression and anxiety? Why? Because it's taboo?
What made my music career, what made me blossom into the artist that I am today, really is all of the, dramatic moments of my life. And I just find some way to take from those themes, take from those personal experiences, and translate them into the lyrics for these songs. This particular project is, like you said, it is me at my most vulnerable I've ever been in my life with anybody. So it was really just fighting with myself and fighting against all of the things that I've been through to create it and put it in a position of I can be happy about this as an artist as well as a person just listening to it. Getting to that point was probably the most difficult because it took a lot of substance dependency. A lot of what went into the album, it didn't really start happening or taking form or shape until my mom passed away. And, there were a lot of nights where I'm sitting up just drinking. I'm sitting up, smoking weed or, doing something, anything to feel something other than numb, feel something other than depressed, feel something other than, hurt or sad to get through making this song.
People who are in pain are treated poorly. The opioid crisis did not help that. And now it's even harder for people to get proper treatment for what they need. At school, when we were teaching, we would do Red Ribbon Week, which is like the drug awareness and prevention week. And the planners would always set up this like weird little graveyard of celebrities who died of drug overdoses, right? To try and scare the kids away from doing drugs. And they would put Prince in this little graveyard. And every year I would get on my little soapbox and I would say, Prince was not a drug addict. Yes, he died of an overdose, but he was not an addict. And I would explain to them that he needed a hip replacement surgery. From all of his years of rocking out, his hip had no cartilage left. He had severe arthritis in his hip. And it was bone on bone. That is painful. That is so painful. Prince was a Jehovah's Witness. Jehovah's Witnesses can't take blood transfusions. When you get a joint replacement, you have to sign off on blood transfusions. So Prince never got a hip replacement and instead depended on pharmaceutical intervention to manage his pain. There is a difference between being dependent and being addicted to painkillers. Prince was dependent on painkillers to manage his pain. He was not an addict. He was not addicted. Even if he was, there should not be the stigma there is around addiction. We should not be criminalizing addicts the way we do. And in a period where he was in excruciating pain, he took too many and he died. I have been in the position with my migraines where I have not remembered whether or not I took my meds or not. I have periods where I have been at the pharmacy waiting for my meds to be filled and I bought something and the next day I didn't remember buying it. I did not like to be alone during that 2014 timeframe when my pain was at its worst, not because I was worried that I would intentionally harm myself, but because I was worried I would accidentally, inadvertently do something to make the pain stop that would be harmful to myself.
I do think specifically for the students that I taught at that alternative school, it was a lot of bigger life circumstances too. These kids are living mostly in survival anyway. They had a lot of abuse, neglect, poverty, and parental loss. Yeah, whether their parents had passed away or they had left, whatever it was that was happening with them. They had normal human traits that were hard for them. We had kids who were on the spectrum. We had kids who had some really big time ADHD, things that they were working through to try to learn that did affect their behavior that caused them to get in trouble in regular public school. So that in and of itself, knowing that if you have a kid who they don't have any food at their house, they're not going to learn for the day. So we try to feed them first or what happened at home? Well, my dad freaked out and he yelled at me, and then this happened and this happened and this happened. And we have a lot of counselors there who are de-escalating those problems so that the teachers can work. But some days it's a shutdown and you're battling that fight or flight, which, we do that as adults, and we've learned maybe more coping skills than they have, whether they're good coping skills or bad coping skills. But they also, so having teachers trying to teach, but then also having them to try to teach with a kid who is in that brain or in that body is a whole different kind of thing.
I distinctly remember, sitting there, listening to the birds chirp and the sun coming up in the early morning, the leaves rustling, the squirrels running around and barking, and kind of moving my way back toward him. I just got enveloped in this aura, this presence. I've never felt anything like that before in my life or since, of just being surrounded by whatever this presence was. And it just silenced everything. All those birds that were chirping silenced. Leaves quit rustling. You couldn't hear nothing running through. And I knew something was not right. And I started to just kind of squat down and reach up to cover my face when I heard the boom.